Welcome. Lock your doors. Turn off the lights and try to get comfortable while I read you a story. Tonight's story is The Redman. There was a man who watched me sleep. He had big eyes that seemed to protrude out of his eye sockets. He had rotting red skin like it was soaked in blood. I first saw him when I was 7. I was having a hard time sleeping that night, but I kept my eyes shut. The wind was cold. I could feel it creeping on my skin. It was laundry day, and Mom didn't have a spare blanket. The window made a faint thumping noise whenever the wind blew. Thump. I should have closed it properly. Thump. But it's fine. The broken streetlight outside made a constant buzzing noise I really liked. I need to sleep. I could faintly hear the television from the living room. Mom probably fell asleep on the couch again. I really need to sleep. I've always been a light sleeper. Anything could wake me up, I guess, even the absence of the thumping. The wind wasn't howling against the window anymore. Maybe Mom closed the window as I slept. I rubbed my eyes and shifted to my other side when I noticed a shadow on my wall. There he was, smiling. He was the oddest thing I ever set my eyes on. I remember my hands shaking. I waited for him to enter my room and hurt me. But he didn't. He didn't move at all. His eyes didn't blink, not once. I waited for him to speak, but he never made a sound. I remember feeling frightened. I don't remember how I fell asleep again. He had a weird set of teeth. It was as if each tooth belonged in somebody else's mouth. His eyes were more bulged the second time I saw him. He almost looked like a different person. I was 9 that time. Mom made me stop going to school. She never told me why, but I could sense that I made people feel uneasy. My classmates rarely talked to me, but when they did, they would keep their distance. They didn't want me there. I got used to it. I didn't care. Mom hired a teacher who came to our house every weekday. His name was Dr. Fleece. I liked him. He would always look at me in the eye when he listened to my stories. He liked to hear about the Redman most. One afternoon after my class, with Dr. Fleece, Mom called and told me I was going to stay over at my cousin's place. My cousin's name was Ida. She was 2 years older than me. She was the only person I considered my friend. I quickly packed my things, and Mom drove me to her house. Ida's bed faced the window, just like mine. It was around 11 when Ida fell asleep. She spent hours talking about her school life, her friends, and the boy she liked. I pretended to understand and made up stories of my own. Mom didn't like it when I told our relatives that I was homeschooled. It was quiet in Ada's neighborhood. It wasn't windy that night. There was no broken streetlight, and her mom turned off the television around 9:30. I could only hear the constant ringing when everything is quiet. My body stiffened. I was falling asleep. Ida's arm on my face woke me up. I immediately saw the silhouette by the window. He was here again. His smile was even wider now. I could easily see how dark and dirty his gums were. My chest throbbed. I was unsure if it was fear or excitement. I can't remember how I fell asleep again, but when I opened my eyes, it was morning. The Redman was gone. I enthusiastically told Dr. Fleece the same morning. He listened intently. I told him how the Redman got thinner and how impossible it is that his eyes were still intact. He asked me if I was afraid. I remember nodding and then doubting my answer. There was a man who watched me sleep, I know, because I watch him back. The Redman never blinks or moves. He was just there, staring with his mouth wide open in a cheek-splitting grin. Dr. Fleece made a bad decision that day. After our class, he told Mom about the Redman. Since then, he hasn't come back to teach me. I waited for him. He was my favorite teacher, but he never came back. Maybe I scared him away. I do that to people. One evening, Mom decided to sleep in my room. I was reading one of the books Dr. Fleece gave me when she entered. It was the first time I'd seen her that way. She was scared of me too. After dinner, I did my chores and went to bed. Mom was already there. She brought her own blanket and pillow. She was skimming through the books Dr. Fleece left for me. I sat beside her. Since then, Mom has slept in my room. I only knew that I had fallen asleep. When I woke up in the middle of the night, the red man was there again, watching me. His eyes were glued to my face, but he wasn't smiling tonight. I wonder why he seemed different again. I was 11 this time, and I didn't feel scared anymore. I was used to him. The red man's company was nice. Since the fear of him faded, I always get to sleep well at night. He made me feel safe. There was a man who watched me sleep. He never moves or blinks. He just stares at me. 2 years passed without seeing him. But I could always feel someone was watching over me. Mom still slept beside me, but I didn't mind. The red man watched over her too. It was nice to have company in the darkness. One night, I woke up feeling thirsty. I looked at the window first, and I felt a sense of disappointment. When I found no friend there, I quietly left my room and walked down the dark hallway. My eyes adjusted quickly, and I found my way to the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator and took out the pitcher of water. I poured cold water into a glass. I saw the clock as the light from the fridge faded. It was midnight. A smirk appeared on my face as I walked back to the bedroom. Before I got there, a piercing scream startled me. The glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I ran back to the room, panting. I opened the door and saw Mom standing behind the bed. She was trembling, her eyes fixed on my window. The red man was there, bloodier than ever. He was smiling this time. The red man, he resembled Dr. Fleece. He had the same rotting skin, but he had Dr. Fleece's eyes. I know because of the way he looked at me. Mom kept screaming, asking our neighbors to call the police. I tried to keep her calm, assuring her that the red man won't harm us, but she was frantic. She called the police and left me in the room with him. "I'm sorry," I murmured, feeling embarrassed by how my mom was reacting. The red man didn't respond, just smiled. After calling the police, my mom dragged me out of the room. I peeked into my room, and he was still there. Mom hugged me and brushed my hair with her hand. She told me everything was going to be okay. I didn't understand why she was trying to comfort me. There was no need to. The police arrived minutes later. I watched them examine the red man from behind my bed. Mom was busy talking to them, so I snuck in. A cop with gloves placed his palms by the red man's head. My eyes grew wide. I was about to stop him when Mom ran back into the room. She pulled me away and tried to cover my eyes, but it was too late. The police pulled off the red man's head from a makeshift pole outside my window. Turns out my friend was a severed head, 4 severed heads. They were the ones who watched me while I slept. The policeman said they had had similar reports in the area since 2006. It wasn't only me. One kid who was 3 years younger than me had been saying the same thing. He had had his own red man, but his mom thought he was only imagining them. He disappeared just 2 weeks before. She was also a single mother. Mom broke down after that. We moved a week later. There wasn't a man who watched me sleep. It turned out I've been staring back at decapitated heads since I was a child. My friend doesn't exist. I'm 14 now. I barely think of the red man. I'm doing fine. New school. I also made a few friends. They started talking to me because they recognized me from the news. They would always want to hear about the red man. It was midnight in our new house when I heard Mom turn off the television. I've been having a hard time falling asleep lately. My therapist said that I should try recalling my earliest memory. I've been thinking about it for a few days now, and it would always bring me back to when I was 5 or 6. I was in our old house, staring outside the window with my hand pressed on the glass. There were red and blue lights coming from outside. I remember feeling sad. A rattling outside stopped my train of thought. The hairs on my limbs started to rise from anticipation. I stared at the window, waiting for... Then a meow startled me. I fluffed my pillow and closed my eyes, disappointed. I dreamed of my earliest memory. It was still the same thing. It was my younger self staring at something outside my window with my palm pressed against the glass. But something new happened. When the red and blue lights completely faded, a large, masculine hand pressed against mine from the other side of the glass. It lingered there as I smiled. When the hand retracted, I was waving goodbye. A knock. I woke up abruptly when I felt something wet touch my toes. I flinched and sat on the bed. Why does my room smell like rust? When my eyes finally adjusted to the darkness, I saw a child's head on the foot of my bed. My sheets were already soaked dark red. The child was smiling. There were pins and threads poking out of his cheeks to keep it that way. It looked messy. There was a man who watched me sleep. He chopped up people's heads and placed them by my window. And now he entered my bedroom and placed a little boy's head on the foot of my bed. I should be scared right now, but I'm not. I know it's an old friend. A large hand knocks on my window. That wraps up the story for tonight. If you're craving more, check out my other stories. Thank you for listening, and have sweet dreams.